Hello World, one of two shows today. We are making history over here on the HoopTalk podcast. Had to do it obviously because we wanted to give you our predictions before any of the second round series started. And due to the Rockets making a shock for most people, getting it to a game 7, we couldn't do the predictions before we had all the second rounds set. So we're going to do the Eastern Conference now, knowing the Cavs and Pacers tip off in about 2 hours. And then after the Rockets Warriors game tonight, we will be back live doing our Western Conference round 2 predictions. But before we get into our Eastern Conference predictions, John D, I just want to ask you, from round 1 of the Eastern Conference, what was your biggest takeaway, biggest surprise?
This is something I've been saying, but depth really matters when it comes to these teams and why they're so good. If we take a look at Boston, if we take a look at Indiana, if we take a look at Cleveland, Ty Jerome has had one of the better first round series from a guy off the bench. The Pacers bench is something that they can always go to, and the Celtics has always had a rotation that they could lean on as well with guys like Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, and Al Horford. And it's gonna be a deciding factor to these to some of these series is just how well can guys off the bench play. Really putting some versatility within your lineups, running double big lineups with the Celtics having Al Horford and KP on the floor, or just having Al Horford sub in for KP multiple times throughout the game, or Jayson Tatum playing without Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday, and more running a lineup of Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, Sam Hauser, himself, and Al Horford. Just having that versatility and multiple guys off the bench that you can go to is also something that really showed itself this series. I know that was a problem with the Bucks. Giannis was consistently the best player on the floor, and it didn't matter because the Pacers just had the overwhelmingly better team and better rotation. I think we're going to see that in the second round against the New York Knicks, how much they're going to rely on their starting five versus Boston having 8 guys that they can go to consistently in this series. So I think the bench is what's going to be the difference, like it was in the first round.
Yeah, that's a good one. My biggest takeaway is the Cavs are for real. I'll start with that. The Cavs are this. I understand they played probably maybe the worst team in the playoffs. I understand that, but to dominate in the way they did, I think they had a plus 33 net rating.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. Like it takes a serious team to do that. I understand a lot of people are like, oh, we haven't seen them do it, or I don't believe they can do this. At some point, we just got to acknowledge like what they've been doing the whole year and what we're seeing. This is one of the best offenses we've seen in a minute, just in terms of the versatility, the amount of ball handlers they have, the way they have unlocked Evan Mobley. Ty Jerome is a revelation. I don't know if people thought he was going to come back down to earth in the playoffs because he's just a regular season guy. I don't know. But Ty Jerome he's amazing. What he did against the Heat, is he going to do the same thing against the Pacers? I don't know. That's hard to project because he was like one of the best players in the playoffs in the first round. But this Cavs team is a legitimate title contender. It's not just, they're a good regular season team that's going to fizzle out. And maybe they might lose to the Pacers. We'll get into that. But this Cavs team is for real. This is a legitimately great team that I think deserves more credit than just being. I've heard people call them like the Atlanta Hawks from 10 years ago. This is not that. Like, that's what I can say with full confidence. This is not that at all. So that's my biggest takeaway. And then on the one of the other series, just how small the margins are. You look at the Knicks Pistons series, the Knicks ultimately won, but the margin is just minuscule. In terms of winning and losing is determined by like 1 or 2 possessions a game, maybe. When you look at what the Pistons did and what the Knicks did, it was, you were really just splitting hairs about who was going to win. I think ultimately, this is where I will testament to Chilltown. My best player is better than your best player. Jalen Brunson he was the difference, in my opinion. He was the difference in this series. I think the Pistons all came out to play. I'm not saying Cade just sucked, but what I am saying is the difference in a lot of these games was just that extra bit of execution down the stretch. And that execution was from Jalen Brunson. So he really was the difference between 2 evenly matched teams. I know you picked the Pistons. I picked the Knicks. We both thought it was going to be a close series. And the fact that the Knicks won in 6, but it very easily could have been Pistons in 6 if a few things went the other way. That Tim Hardaway foul call obviously being the biggest of those things. But like that's how small the margins are in series like these that are really tightly contested. And I think that's what makes like series like the Pistons and Knicks really cool and competitive, because you don't really know who's going to win. I mean, it's easy after the fact to be like, oh yeah, I knew the Pistons were going to win, or I knew the Knicks were going to win. This was a series that I think was practically impossible to call, and that's why I enjoyed it so much. So those are my two biggest takeaways. The margins are just minuscule at this level, and that the Cavs are a legitimate threat to go all the way. Those are my two biggest takeaways. But before we do get into our predictions, there is a series that we barely spoke about last week because it was pretty much a foregone conclusion. So I do want to ask you, just what are your thoughts on Boston handling Orlando in 5 games?
I think Jayson Tatum over the last 3 games has been really good as a scorer, just getting to the basket, hitting his shots. I think he's been really good as out there. I think Derek White has been really good. Kristaps Porzingis is giving me some type of concern just because he hasn't been as active defensively this series. He hasn't been able to attack mismatches as well, but then you have to give credit to the Orlando Magic defense and how they've been able to play defense in this series. Franz and Paolo, I think they have a really high ceiling. I just think one of them is going to have to be able to hit a jump shot consistently for them to be like a serious threat within this team. Like Franz would be the guy for me, but then it's like he hasn't really been shooting the ball well over the past 2 years, especially in the postseason. But with the way he's able to get downhill, the way he's able to get to the rim, the way he's able to play make, I think that helps a lot. He's also been the closer in some of these games over Paolo Banchero. I still think Paolo Banchero has a little bit of trouble with his jump shot selection. It has gotten a lot better since his stretch where I think he was still a little banged up, but they have a very high ceiling with Orlando, and I'm really intrigued to see what comes next year. Obviously, they didn't have Jalen Suggs, which I think would have helped them. Now, I don't think they would have won the series with Jalen Suggs, but I do think Jalen Suggs would have made a bigger impact than like a guy like Anthony Black at the moment. So I'm really excited to see what the Orlando Magic have for the future.
I agree with that. My biggest thing with and I've seen this on our good friends of the show, the Hoop Venue podcast. They spoke about Jayson Tatum, and I didn't know this. I had to fact check it myself when I heard it. Did you know only 8% of Jayson Tatum's threes in that series were assisted?
Damn.
So I know small sample size. He only played 4 games. He made 12 threes. So like I understand, but that means of his 12 threes he made, 11 of them were unassisted. That means he was just killing Orlando, a lot of isolation possessions. I've seen that stat. Yeah. But like he was killing them with pull-up threes. And besides game 1 where he shot 1 for 8, the rest of the series he was 44% from 3. Last year was like the outlier horrible jump shooting postseason for him, and he got ridiculed and killed for it. I was part of that in terms of just I'm not as high on Jayson Tatum scoring. I'm still not like uber high. We did our top 10 scorers. I had him at 10, I believe. But if we get a postseason where Jayson Tatum's jump shot is falling, which we know is capable of doing, we know he can shoot. Boston hit another gear, and I do have the same concerns with Porzingis as you do. I didn't like what I saw from him at all in the first round. But the more I watch Jayson Tatum, and maybe this is just from me not watching him a lot before. I'd like to think I was watching a lot, but he's really good. Like he's really, really good. I understand like he gets a lot of criticism and that he has this great team around him and all of that stuff. I don't care. Like, I just think he's really good. Like I think he's a really, really good player. And maybe a title run with like the accolades and he's a more efficient scorer. Maybe that will get people to change their opinions of him. I don't know, but I want to see this sustained throughout the postseason against the Knicks if they beat the Knicks, against the Cavs or the Pacers. I want to see what this looks like throughout the whole postseason because Jayson Tatum is really, really good. And then on Orlando, I think Franz and Paolo are an elite wing tandem to build around with the talent they have. But I do think if Franz can't shoot the 3, which we're getting to a point where it's been back-to-back seasons now, where he's been legitimately one of the worst 3-point shooters in the NBA.
Yeah.
You're going to have to put shooters around them. You can't, like, that. Maybe that means sacrificing the Jalen Suggs, who I think is great. Defensively, everything. Wendell Carter, who I think provides value. I'll say that he provides value. Jonathan Isaac, who everyone knows how I feel about him. KCP, who I understand he was meant to be the shooting, but he just hasn't worked out. If you're going to build around two wings like Franz and Paolo, who both aren't the greatest jump shooters, you need some of the best shooting around them. So I think that's the next step for Orlando. It's not make a major talent improvement. It's about injecting the roster with some outside shooting, whether that's at the point guard position with like an Anthony Simons type. I'm not saying that's who you go get, but like someone like that, or you go to a shooting guard position with someone who is a more reliable three-point shooter than KCP. That has to be the next step for this roster because Franz and Paolo as a young duo is one of the best in the NBA. I want to say Franz is 23.
I think there's a 1 or 2 year gap. I think Franz may be 24 at this point though.
Point still stands. He's 20, 24, 23. Paolo's 22, 23. Like that should be your duo for the foreseeable future. You just got to do a slightly better job just building that unit around him. And I think the future's bright. But I think Boston, as expected, did do what they needed to do. I don't think it's really a surprise. I think you give credit to Orlando for getting that game. But that's my biggest takeaways from that series. Every other series I think we spoke about. So I want to actually take this time before we get into our recap, not our recaps, our previews, to talk about how we're doing in terms of predictions for round one. Because we did do our predictions, I want to say 2 weeks ago now. So I'm gonna put this on the screen and I'm gonna show you guys that this is what we're looking at. So obviously I color coded it. Yellow means we got the team correct, but we got the games wrong. Reds means we got the outcome wrong, and the green means the games and the series was correct. So as you can tell, the only person who got anything absolutely right was John T. Credit to you. You got Boston over Orlando in 5 games. Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
And we each got 3 series wrong. We both picked the Lakers, so we were both wrong. We both picked the Clippers, in which we saw last night. Both wrong. You picked the Pistons, you was wrong on that one, and then I went with the Bucks in 7. A lot of wishful thinking there. And I was wrong. So far, you have, if you were to do a point system and say you get 1 point for getting it right and 0.5 points for getting it right, but not the games, you would have 1 point, 2 points. You'd have 2.5 points, and I would have 2 points. Now, if the Warriors win today, you will have 3.5 points. And if the Rockets win today, I will have 2.5. So the outcome of this Rockets game really determines if we're tied or if you're winning. So that's where we're at. And then today we are going to do the rest of our predictions. So far, I don't think that's too bad. We only got 3 series wrong out of 8. That's not too bad.
I don't think that's bad. I don't think that's bad at all.
So, I mean, next round there's 4 series. So if we only get 1 wrong, we're looking at decent percentages. We do have a super chat here right before we get into our predictions from Brian Akeem. He said, rank on athleticism, Kobe, Shaq, Wade, and KD. I'll leave that one to you. Rank them on athleticism.
On athleticism, I would say Wade. It depends what point of their career, but I'm gonna just do the peak of their athleticism. I would say Wade, Kobe, KD, Shaq. I think Shaq is hard to really like. Well, because if you look at how big he is and how he's able to move with how big he is, Wade, Kobe, Shaq, KD. But then
I got Shaq 1. I don't know what to tell you. I got Shaq 1.
Yeah,
I got Shaq 1 for sure. So you said Wade, Kobe, Shaq, KD.
Wade, Kobe, Shaq, KD. Yeah,
I got Shaq 1. Shaq 1, Wade 2. And then KD and Kobe. Shaq, Wade, Kobe, KD is just like not Aaron's in that mid. Aaron's in that I'll say Shaq, Wade, but KD being 7 feet, moving that agile. That's but then Kobe, like the balance, the dexterity. I'm gonna go Shaq, Wade, Kobe, KD. That's what I'm gonna go. Shaq, Wade, Kobe, KD. That'll be my ranking. Yeah, I'll start on that. Shaq, Wade, Kobe, KD. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, thank you for the super chat, Akeem. Yes, we're gonna start with the Boston Celtics against the New York Knicks. John D, What are you going with?
So when I was going back and watching a few of these games, there's a few things that I wanted to look at to where the Celtics can make this a little bit more interesting than the public is giving them credit for. I think Karl Anthony Towns has to really attack these mismatches and be aggressive. I think the Celtics throughout the first few games, they're going to be comfortable leaving Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, sometimes even Derek White or Sam Hauser on him, and I think he really has to take advantage of that. In the last game they played, Jaylen Brown was guarding him in a few possessions. Karl Anthony Towns got to the rim a lot. He got to the free throw line. He converted. If we look at his shot chart from the last game, he was like 8 for 10 in the restricted area, 4 for 7 in the paint outside the restricted area, and he was efficient in the mid range. It's just him being able to attack those while getting to the basket, being less turnover prone and getting to the free throw line as much as possible. Also, there was a possession where he was trailing in transition, and Sam Hauser matched up with him, and he was able to get to the rim. He missed the layup, but I think he got fouled. So maybe next time he'll get some free throw opportunities. I think it starts with Karl Anthony Towns being more aggressive. Now, where I really look at this series and I'm like, okay, defensively, how do you hide Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns as much as you possibly can? And I think Jaylen Brunson is going to be so stuck into who he's going to have to guard. I think he has to guard Jrue Holiday. I think he has to. I don't think he's going to be able to guard anybody else in this series. And I also think Karl Anthony Towns is going to struggle in space against Kristaps Porzingis. They're going to be able to run screens off the ball, run screens on the ball to get those switches every single time. There was a possession in that game where Kristaps Porzingis set a screen, or Jrue Holiday set a screen for Kristaps Porzingis, and Karl Anthony Towns just conceded the switch extremely easily. And I was taking a look. Jrue Holiday shoots 29% on wide open threes now, or open threes, 40% on wide open threes. So, in my opinion, you need to just have Jalen Brunson try and collapse on Jrue Holiday as fast as possible to not concede that switch. Because once they got the switch, Karl Anthony Towns helped on KP. KP swings it. Once KP swings it, you know what Boston does. Boston's going to find their way to an elite shooter to be open on the perimeter. So when I looked at Jaylen Brown, open threes, 32%, Jrue Holiday, open threes, 29%. I just think you should maybe gamble off them a little bit more than you would a Derek White or a Jayson Tatum or a Sam Hauser, to where you can hide yourselves on the defensive end as much as possible. Do I think it'll work? Absolutely not. I don't think it'll work. I just don't think they're the defenders to be able to execute as well in the half court against a team that executes switching and attacking mismatches better than anyone else in the league. I don't think Jayson Tatum's going to get as much isolation attempts in this series like he did in last series. I think OG's probably going to do a really good job at making sure he can take away that isolation attempts. But then again, I think there's just going to be so much more better options for him, whether he's playing in the pick and roll and getting pull-up three opportunities, whether he's getting Derek White wide open threes, or Sam Hauser or Jrue Holiday or Jaylen Brown or Al Horford or Peyton Pritchard. Like, I just think there's going to be so much more opportunities for the Celtics to score in this series, more than just Jayson Tatum playing in isolation. So I think that is the deciding factor for me. I think Boston is going to get whatever they want offensively, and I think the Knicks need to focus in on more on how do you match them offensively for a few games to where you guys can win them down the stretch with Brunson or Cat, more than trying to stop them, because I don't think they have the personnel to stop them. I think Mitchell Robinson, I think he gives Jayson Tatum a lot of pull-up three-point opportunities. I think Cat does the same thing. I think Jalen Brunson's probably going to have to show a lot against Jrue Holiday. But then again, it's like you could put Jrue Holiday on the weak side, and then now him showing isn't really effective, because now whoever's on the strong side is going to have to show. And what if that's Derek White in the corner? So it's a lot for the Knicks to try and cover defensively. And I would have the Boston Celtics winning this in 5 games.
I've tried, since this series has been announced or confirmed, I guess is the right word, I've tried every single possibility to convince myself the Knicks can win this series. That's all I've done. Ever since I found out the Celtics were playing the Knicks, I've tried to think of every single possible avenue as to how the Knicks could possibly win. And I came to no answers. I'll just put it out there. I'm not an NBA coach. I came to zero possibility I can see the Knicks winning this series. I think Brunson and Drew Holiday was the first thing I immediately thought of. Then I went straight to the fact that the Celtics still like using Drew Holiday in the dunker spot. And then that means you're going to have Jalen Brunson as your rim protector. I was like, okay, that's cooked. Then I realized that you could also use Drew Holiday as a screener, and whether he's popping out to the 3-point line where you either can't switch or you're going to have Brunson show and then try and recover, but then you got Drew Holiday driving a late closeout, you're cooked. Or you don't close out and then you concede the open threes and hope he misses, which is probably the best strategy. But then I think Boston will go away from that and just keep Brunson near the rim, like I said. And OG Anunoby, I think, can guard Jayson Tatum. I also think OG Anunoby can guard Jaylen Brown. The issue is the Knicks don't have two OG Anunobys.
Facts.
They have one. So, assuming he's guarding Jayson Tatum, which I think is a reasonable assumption, Jaylen Brown is going to have a mismatch. He's too strong. He's too physical for Mikal. I've seen Cade Cunningham to be too strong and too physical for Mikal. And Jaylen Brown even has a quickness advantage. So that's not a great matchup. Josh Hart, is more effort than actual good defense. Karl Anthony Towns has his own problems in this matchup, whether that be his drop coverage against Jayson Tatum pull-up threes, or you got the fact that Kristaps Porzingis is an elite pick and pop threat. In theory, he wasn't against Orlando, so there's that hope. But in theory, he's a great pick and pop threat, which takes away Cat's drop coverage impacts, and he's already not a great drop big. And then you've just got the simple fact that the Knicks don't shoot many threes, and the Celtics do. So you're already starting from like a numerical disadvantage. And when you look at how many threes the Celtics created against the Knicks defense, I think it probably goes even higher. I could check, but I can't bother. So defensively, you're not going to do anything to slow down Boston, in my opinion, besides some 3-point variance, which you're going to need on your side, which I think is a fair thing. It exists. 3-point variance exists. And then offensively, the Celtics switch everything, and they have a myriad of good defenders, Porzingis being the weak link in terms of switchability. And they make sure to not send a lot of help because they try to take away the three as much as possible, in particular the corner three. So I expect to see a lot of Brunson isolation, which I think he can be reasonably effective in that. I expect to see Cat trying to attack mismatches, whether that is a Drew Holiday or a Derek White, when you get him on a switch at the mid post or the face-up game. The issue is I think guys like OG, they're not going to get much offense going in this series. Mikal, I don't expect him to get much offense going in this series. Deuce McBride, Campaign, etc. I don't think there's going to be much for them. So you're going to rely a lot on isolation basketball from two All-NBA caliber players, which is possible. Mm-hmm. But is that enough to keep up with what I think Boston's going to do offensively? No. Personally, no. I just don't think it's going to be enough. So I also went with Boston in 5 because I feel like saying a sweep is a bit far-fetched. Not because I don't think it's possible, but it's because like the Knicks are a good team, and I don't want to say a good team's going to get swept. But it's like I don't see the avenue for them winning besides 3-point variance. Like that's the only way I see them winning a game. I don't know if I buy that.
Is this like the worst possible matchup that any team could have gotten in the playoffs? Like, do you think there's a worse matchup for any other team than the Celtics are for the Knicks?
It's a good question. Nah, because I think we've seen it throughout the season. This was a bad matchup.
Yeah.
Like game 1 of the season, if I remember correctly, it was Boston versus New York, and I think Boston damn near set a 3-point record against them.
Yeah.
And I was like, game 1, it was like, okay, well, that's not great. And then the next time they played, they blew them out again. And then the only one that was close was the one they played. Was it right before or right after the All-Star break? That one was relatively close. After.
Yeah,
and then they played another one like towards the end of the season. And that one went to overtime, right? That was the game where
Cat had
if I remember correctly, Cat was going crazy.
Yeah, he had
but they still lost. So it's like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm saying Boston in 5, so we're both at Boston in 5, but it really could be a sweep to me. And I see no avenue to where they win the series. Like I can see them extending it to like 6. If they get to 7, a miracles happens. But I don't see them winning the series. Like no matter how I try to slice it, if Boston are fully healthy and the Knicks are healthy, I don't see how the Knicks can win. And I don't think that's a knock on the Knicks as much as it is praise to Boston. I just think Boston are that much better in this matchup. So that's where I stand. Is there anything else you want to add to this potential series? Actually, who do you think is going to be the best player in the series? Let me. Who's going to perform?
Who I think is going to be the best player in the series?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it's going to go from game to game if we look at just a point per game standpoint, but I think Jayson Tatum's going to be the best player in this series. I think he's going to dictate so much offense in this series to where I think he'll be able to get whatever he wants the most out of anybody else, any of the stars, at least when you look at Cat and JB, both of the JBs and JT. I think he's going to be able to get a lot of pull-up three-point opportunities, especially if his jump shot's hitting. There could definitely be some games where he has like 35. I definitely think the playmaking is going to be there for him. I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities to show what he can do on defense. I think he's going to have a lot of possessions guarding Cat so he can switch on to Brunson, things of that nature. I think it's going to be Jayson Tatum. But the Celtics have had an offensive rating of 130 all year against the Knicks. So I'm gonna trust what my eyes have shown me all year. Once again, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, people are gonna think it's crazy to say the Knicks could get swept or the Knicks might get swept. I wouldn't be. I think it's closer for the Knicks to get swept than it is to go 7 games. Like, I would definitely pick Boston to sweep them before the series goes 7. And people would take offense to that because the Knicks are a good team. It's just we're past the point where we have a good team. We can go. To win a championship, you have to have it takes more than just having a good team now. You have to be able to avoid those bad matchups. And the Knicks they just ran into a really bad matchup. They ran into a really bad matchup in the second round.
For what it's worth, I don't think the Cavs would have been a much better matchup for them either.
But yeah, same.
Yeah, I just think this was where they were going to be capped out based on how the standings panned out. But I think Jayson Tatum as well. I do think just Jayson Tatum is just in general like clearly the best player in the series.
Yeah.
But I think just the playmaking value. Hot take alert.
Okay. About to get clipped.
And this isn't fully well thought out, but it's something I've been deliberating with a little bit. How crazy is it if I say the thing Jayson Tatum is worst at is scoring?
Because then you got to look at the playmaking, you got to look at the defense.
The versatility.
Because I was about to say, when you look at Jayson Tatum, you think about the versatility of his game, the fact that he can play in so many roles, and it's just like you do all the things that a Derek White would do, but you also can give us 28 a night. So it's like, because I would definitely bank on him making the consistent play, and offensively as a playmaker and defensively. I can get with it. Keep explaining though. I want to hear where you're going with this.
When I look at on a game-to-game basis, I think the one thing that you don't know if it's going to be there is the consistent high-end scoring.
Mm-hmm.
I think every game, the attention he's drawing, the ability to get the ball out quick, the reads he can now make out of pick and roll, whether it be those skip passes, finding the popper out the pick and pop when they're playing drop, all of those things, the hit ahead passes, just the simple reads that don't get enough credit. We'll talk about Tyrese Haliburton later. He does that on a game-to-game basis. The versatility, being able to be a team's primary rebounder, being able to be practically the 5. Like, I understand Porzingis exists, but like in this series, like Porzingis is going to guard Josh Hart and just like ignore it. And Jayson Tatum is going to be guarding the primary actions. Being able to do that, then being able to, like I said, close possessions, be elite defensively off the ball, being able to guard in space as well on the ball while not being like elite at it, but still providing that level of defensive value. The only thing that you don't know what you're getting from on a game-to-game basis is Jayson Tatum going to be 17 on bad efficiency tonight, or is he going to be 28 on solid efficiency, or is he going to go crazy for 41? So when I say I think his worst attribute may be his scoring, that's not to say he's a bad scorer. Once again, when we did our list, I had him as the 10th best scorer in the NBA. And maybe he's not a top 10 playmaker. I don't know. Maybe he's not. So maybe in terms of his ranking relative to the league, he's a better scorer than a playmaker or a better scorer than a passer. But in terms of on a game-to-game basis, I think the one thing that is the most questionable that you don't know what you're going to get is the scoring.
Mhm.
So that's what I mean by, is it crazy to say Jayson Tatum's worst attribute is his scoring?
Would you look at would you factor in the ceiling of his scoring versus the ceiling of his playmaking as well, though? Because
I think if you factor that in, then his scoring might be his best attribute.
yeah,
But
then
his scoring is so, I don't want to say up and down, because he's not just someone who he's not going to give you 12 and then 36 and then 11 and then 40. He's not doing that. But it is more volatile because of the shot profile, because of the isolation centric style, because the mid range comes and goes. So I think I'm not looking at ceiling. I'm more so looking at the floor and then the consistency. Those would be the two things I'm looking at. So in terms of floor, I think in terms of floor, easily scoring is his worst attribute. I think that goes without saying. His scoring floor is worse than his playmaking and defensive floor at this point.
Yeah.
And then in terms of just a consistent over 82 games over a postseason run, I still think I think we saw it last year in the postseason. I think if I said this last year based on last year's postseason, that Jayson Tatum's worst attribute in the playoffs was his scoring, I think everyone would agree.
Yeah, everybody would agree.
And I still think that player exists. He could very easily in this series shoot 21% from three. And then his scoring looks poor and he averages 22 a game. And then we have to listen to the Jaylen Brown conversations again.
Oh.
Which, I mean, everything I'm saying, I mean is a compliment to Jayson Tatum, because he's that good that his scoring is the thing he's worst at.
Yeah.
He's already one of the best scorers in the NBA. I think it's a testament to his versatility. So I hope no one's taking it as an insult to his game. I hope not. But this is just me thinking. I'm not sold on the take. Also, Jayson Tatum shot 10 free throws a game against Orlando.
Yeah.
He's doing that.
Yeah. That's because he had that stretch earlier this year where it's he's getting to the free throw line, he's playing in the mid range, he's attacking guys like Evan Mobley off the catch or off the dribble. And it's when Jayson Tatum's playing like that, there's not a lot of answers that you have for him when he's shooting off the dribble and he can knock those down efficiently. When he's attacking your best defender on multiple occasions and getting to the line and finishing around the rim. And now he can make the right play consistently, play after play after play after play. I just don't. And then you have such a good team around him where you may not be as confident helping off Derek White, Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, Al Horford, KP. You can run a really efficient pick and roll with him. It's just really hard to stop him once that shot is falling and once he's getting to the rim consistently.
Yeah, the more I'm getting higher and higher on Jayson Tatum by the day. Really, that's where I'm at. I'm getting higher and higher on him. I don't know what that means in terms of rankings. I'm not doing that. That's an off-season conversation. But
yes, it is.
I'm getting a lot higher on Jayson Tatum. But with that being said, I think Jayson Tatum is going to be the best player in the series. And we do have a couple super chats regarding this series, and then we will get on to the Pacers against the Cavs. For anyone wondering, because we're doing two shows today, the shows are going to be shorter because we're only talking about two series. So we're going to talk about these two series now and then the Western series later. So normally we go for about an hour and a half. Going to be less than that in this show, and then another show later tonight. Make sure you watch that episode as well if you want to hear us talk about the Western Conference. Blah, 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 all of that. Cool. Okay. Super chat from Cowboy Bob, friend of the show, my PCL victim. He said, beat Boston by slowing down your offense, score in transition off missed 3-point shots, keep the game close. They shot 50% on 10 3-pointers. Score 7 for 10 in the mid-range. God damn. That's 15-14. Also driving. Can you give a chance at fouls? Go New York. So he's saying basically, if they're going to shoot high volume threes, we have to match that efficiency on mid-range jumpers. The issue is that's going
to be really hard to do.
Yeah, that's the issue. It's kind of hard to do that. But in theory, yes. But it's just 70% on mid-range. That's not even Kevin Durant efficiency. That's way above that. So it's going to be hard to do that. I think free throws are going to be your friends with Jalen Brunson. Definitely have to maximize transition. And you guys are going to have to do rebounds. Yeah, they're going to have rebound for sure. Offensive rebounds for sure. Very interested to see if Jayson Tatum can keep Mitchell Robinson off the glass. Very interested to see that. But yeah, it's going to be tough. And then MP13 said the Knicks don't really have the personnel to make the Celtics beat them in a one-on-one. over the top shot making. OKC can probably do that. Yeah, but OKC are a team that your one-on-ones aren't truly one-on-ones, if that makes sense, because of how they're able to swarm the ball and then get back out. So that's what makes them different. They're a whole different beast. But yeah, the Knicks, I agree, don't have the personnel to contain in isolation really outside of OG and Mikel in certain matchups. But unfortunately, I don't think the Celtics are one of those matchups. So that's where I find it tough. And then OG team, Knicks fan, said, what's stopping you guys from saying Brunson is a top 10 player? He's borderline first team All NBA in the regular season and a top 5 playoff riser. Go ahead.
I think he's borderline All NBA first team because there's a lot of guys that are injured. Just a lot of guys that didn't make the list. Like I think there's gonna, and for me, he's always been between that 11 to 13 range. I think if you're asking me on the day, he may be 9 or 10, but then again, that's no slight to Brunson. That's just more of the talent that we have in the NBA because coming into the year, guys that are going to be coming in or going into next year, next regular season, there's going to be guys that I can probably just pencil into my top 10, like guys like Jokic, Giannis, SGA, Tatum. Those are 4 guys that are going to be penciled in. I think you have to put and Wemby in there. Those are 2 young guys that are going to find their way into my top 10. I think Ant is probably on the borderline where Jalen Brunson is right now, but I definitely think Wemby is going to be in there. I think a healthy Anthony Davis. Altogether, I think I named 9 players already. And then it's like I didn't even name anyone out of the 3 in KD, Bron, and Steph. And it's like they have stretches throughout the entire year where they could be top 10 as well. So it's just a lot of talent. So if you ask me on a day, is Jalen Brunson a top 10 player? There may be a day where I'm like, you know what? Let's squeeze him in there. Take with that as you will. But it's just a lot of talent in the NBA. That's the only reason why I wouldn't have Jalen Brunson confirmed top 10. Confirmed.
Yeah, I just think the league is too talented that I understand we like these round numbers. We like triple doubles, so 10, 10, and 10. Like I understand that. But it's like I say about all-time top 10s as well. It's like I'm at a point where there's like 12 top 10 players of all time. Like there's like 13 top 10 players in the NBA. Like there's only 10 spots. So if I have Jalen Brunson at 12, that doesn't mean that I think he sucks. It's just like there's a lot of good players. Like in most eras, Jalen Brunson is a top 10 player. I just think in today's game, it's tough to make that list. Like I think Shea, Jokic, Giannis, Tatum, Lucas still, like that's 5 guys who I think you have to have in there. Then if you do rank Joel Embiid, like he has to be in there. But if you don't rank him, then you take him out. But then you got KD, Steph, Bron,
Kawhi when he wants to be healthy.
Sure, Kawhi, Anthony Davis, like Anthony Edwards, Wemby, Jalen Brunson. Like there's so many guys who are in and around that group. Now I'm at the point where I say it all the time. Tiers are better than concrete rankings. Like I'm at the point where like I couldn't tell you definitively why the 6th player is better than the 7th player. I'll just have them in the same tier and say I could convince myself either way. It just depends how I feel on the day. But for some reason, tier lists are frowned upon. You can't put someone in the same tier. You have to have a concrete belief that this guy's better than that guy, even if they're separated by 1 spot. And if you think my guy is below your guy, then you're just wrong and you don't know ball. It's like I disagree. It's tough. Jalen Brunson to me is like concretely in like the 2nd tier of the NBA. Maybe the 3rd tier, depending on how big the 2nd tier really is. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. But like that's where he is. And whether that puts him at 10 or that puts him at 14, I don't think that really makes much of a difference for how good he really is. So that's where I stand on Jalen Brunson. Definitely think he's the best player on the Knicks, though. I've been definitely trying to push that the whole year. I wasn't listening to
because that was getting pushed. Yeah, that was getting pushed earlier
to that. But anyway, on to the series that tips off in just over an hour now. Pacers Cavs. John Z, what's your thoughts?
I am really, really excited for this series, man. Like I saw, like, because I was saying earlier this season, I think the Pacers have a shot against a lot of teams in the East, and that's not me saying I'm about to go off the rails and have a Detroit Pistons moment, but I really think some of the X factors in this series, one, I think is the Pacers front court. I think the Pacers front court is going to be extremely important in this series. I think Pascal Siakam is going to have to attack guys like Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, maybe even a Max Strus in this series. I also think Miles Turner is going to have to hit his shots. This year, so far in the playoffs, he's averaging about 37% from 3 on 5 attempts. A lot of these attempts have been relatively open as well. And then Andrew Nembhard. Andrew Nembhard is going to have to be the level of defender that I think he is, what he's shown this season. He's going to have his hands full. And same with Aaron Nesmith. Like, the Pacers are going to have to not only play a high level of offense, but then have to get stops kind of regularly. Like, just be better as a defensive unit against this Cleveland Cavaliers team, because they have a lot they can throw at you. They have a lot of versatility they can throw at you. They have a really deep bench. And you can say a lot of that about the Pacers as well. They have a lot of versatility. They have a really deep bench. They push the pace better than a lot of teams in the NBA. They attack mismatches really well with Pascal Siakam. It's just, I think the Cavs edge them out just a little bit, because not only do I think the Cavs have some personnel to be able to take care of Pascal Siakam, I definitely think there's some lineups to where they can make life tough for Haliburton and Pascal Siakam. One thing the Bucks did in the series against the Pacers was they moved to a switch everything lineup. Let me know if I'm crazy. Would you run a lineup of maybe like a Garland, Strus, Hunter, Dean Wade, and Evan Mobley, to where you can get a lot of switching, and then maybe you can throw a DeAndre Hunter on Pascal, maybe a Dean Wade on Pascal, maybe a Evan Mobley on Pascal, to try and have multiple players on the floor that can kind of hold their own against that switch. And then you do have some offensive personnel in Max Strus and DeAndre Hunter with the shooters they are, Dean Wade with his athleticism, Evan Mobley with his mismatch attacking. I think that's a really good lineup you can go to where you have the bodies able to put in front of a Pascal, because I think the Pacers are going to really try and play in pick and roll and get that Darius Garland switch, get that Donovan Mitchell switch, and get Evan Mobley off Pascal Siakam as much as possible.
Yeah, I don't know if I remember seeing that lineup ever in my life. I'm not saying it's a bad lineup, I just don't know because the Cavs deploy a lot of different lineups. So maybe they have deployed that and I just haven't been paying attention. Yeah, I think that's the difference for me, the lineup flexibility. I understand the Pacers have a lot of depth, but the Cavs can go to so many assortments of lineups that it's kind of difficult to see them losing. You could even go, like, if you wanted to go all offense, you could genuinely go Mitchell, Garland, Jerome, and then Mobley at the 5 with whichever wing you want, whether that's DeAndre, whether that's Max Strus, probably not Dean Wade in the offense lineup. Or you could even go like all defense and then go Donovan Mitchell, Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley. Like, the flexibility they have, and then they can switch everything minus Garland notwithstanding.
Yeah,
you can switch everything. You have Mobley playing the back line. You have Jarrett Allen, who's capable of defending in space. Doesn't get enough credit for that, by the way. Yeah, doesn't get enough credit for that at all. I think the biggest difference will be the rebounding. The Cavs have like a major rebounding advantage, in my opinion. That's where the Pacers really lack in terms of rebounding on both sides of the ball, offensive and defensive. And I think this is just common knowledge at this point. The Cavs have the worst defender of anyone in Darius Garland. In terms of the stars. But the Pacers, the Cavs have more people to attack the Pacers' weaknesses. Like Haliburton, if I'm remembering the Pacers lineup correctly, Haliburton is the Pacers' weakest defender. And the Cavs can attack him more sustainably and comfortably than the Pacers can attack Garland. And then I look at the mobility they have on the outside, Mitchell being able to play passing lanes, Dean Wade being a very good defender who doesn't get enough credit. We know the reason why. Of course. Shout out to Cooper Flagg. He's gonna be a surprisingly good defender.
Like how he's a sneaky athlete.
Yeah, sneaky athlete, yeah. Evan Mobley doing everything he does at the rim. I feel like this is like, for me, it's a concrete, like, the Cavs are gonna win. But I think they're gonna win a lot of close games.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, I expect the series to be over quickly, but I think every game is gonna be competitive for the most part. I do think there can be outlier gains in terms of shot quality, and you make some shots. But for the most part, I think it's going to be very close. I just don't think the Pacers are better. Like the Pacers' offense is their strength. The Cavs are better offensively.
Facts.
Like the Pacers' ability to find mismatches, attack them, and move the ball quickly is a strength. But the Cavs do that just as well as anyone. They don't pass the ball as much as the Pacers. But the reason they don't pass the ball as much as the Pacers is because the Pacers' avenue of advantage creation is the quick decision making. The Cavs' avenue of advantage creation is that they have guys who can get two on the ball. Haliburton doesn't draw two on the ball the same way Mitchell and Garland do, but he's so good at making quick decisions that he's creating advantages without doing that. But that just requires extra passing and all of those things that the Cavs don't require because they can create open shots with just one drive and kick. And I just don't think the Pacers defense can keep up with that, personally. And I just think the Cavs have too much versatility. I'm gonna go Cavs in 5. That's what I've got. I got Cavs in 5. Where are you going with this?
You know, I really like the Pacers, man. I can't. I'm gonna get, because I'm really just deciding between Cavs in 5 or 6. That's really what I'm just deciding between.
You said you like the Pacers. Like, nice.
Oh no, I'm not going to Pacers. I'm just deciding between 5 and 6. Just so we can have some difference here, I'm gonna go Cavs in 6. And hopefully it's Cavs in 6. So maybe one day the game 6 falls on an off day and I can drive to Indiana and go to a game. Maybe. Let's hope. But
I think if it's gonna be 6, I think the Pacers have to win game 1. That's where I'm at. I think the Pacers have to win game 1. I know they're on the road, but if it's gonna be 6, I think they have to win game 1. Otherwise, I'm fairly confident in 5. What do you think the Cavs are gonna do with Garland defensively?
Because then it's like I don't know if I want to put Garland on Nembhard. But then again, Aaron Nesmith and Benedict Mathurin are solid at attacking smaller guards. But then again, it's like, if you're going to let Aaron Nesmith attack all game, by all means, I would put Garland on Nesmith. And then I would probably put Mitchell on Nembhard. I would start DeAndre Hunter in this series and have him guard Hallie. And then like Evan Mobley on Siakam, Jared Allen on Miles Turner. And then, because at that point, Aaron Nesmith may be able to can be used as a screener or as a cutter, or they can put him down low and then Garland's just going to be there. That's a really good question. I don't know what I would do with Garland.
That's right. I'm hiding him on the weakest offensive player, whoever that may be. Maybe it is Nembhard, but Nembhard does have some self-creation abilities. I mean, we've seen him hunting Giannis a little bit.
Yeah.
But Nesmith, I think, is too big. Nesmith is like a solid, like 6'7", 6'6". I'll say 6'6". Nesmith like a solid 6'6". Garland 6'1" on a good day.
Dry shoes.
I think, and then you use Nesmith as a screener, like you alluded to. Then you have Garland either showing and recovering to a 40% 3-point shooter, which is a bad recipe. Or you've got him committing to the switch on Haliburton, but then you're going to have to switch and then double. But Haliburton can make every read out of that. Yeah, I don't know what you do with Garland. I'm not saying Garland becomes unplayable. Obviously not. Yeah, but I do think he does present his own catalog of problems. But then on the flip side, like, what do you do with Haliburton defensively? Like, who do you put him on? I'm assuming it's on the Max Strus or whoever.
Yeah, the Max Strus or DeAndre Hunter. And that's what's tough about it too, because DeAndre Hunter can also put the ball on the floor. I think he does it better than Max Strus as well. So I think it depends on who's starting. I definitely wouldn't put Hallie on either one of the Mitchell or Garland duo. I think that's going to be Nembhard and Nesmith's assignments. So I think it's going to have to be on Strus or DeAndre Hunter, whoever they decide to go with. And I think that's why I said if I'm Kenny Atkinson, I would start DeAndre Hunter just because I think he can attack Haliburton more on defense than Max Strus possibly could. So, and then you also get that defense, and you can also have somebody that can guard Pascal if Evan Mobley's not on him. So I definitely would just put Hallie on Hunter or Strus.
Then what do you do with Hallie if you go with the 3-guard lineup and you go with Mitchell, Garland, and Jerome?
You're just gonna have to like pick your poison. Because I'm definitely not putting them on Mobley. Like if they're running that 3-guard lineup, then you have Mobley and Allen, or if I'm assuming like only one of them is in, I'm definitely not putting Hallie on Mobley. I'm not doing that at all. So it's like, who out of those three, who's gonna kill us the least?
He's gonna have to stick with Jerome.
Yeah, he's gonna have to stay with Jerome. He's gonna have to.
But I've seen the Cavs use Jerome as a screener for like Mitchell. So then if you're doing that, and then you've got Haliburton closing out to Jerome, which you obviously have to do because he shoots 40% from 3.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like 50+% on floaters. So you've got Ty Jerome driving down with an advantage with Mobley in the dunker spot. Cavs and 5, man. Yeah, Cavs and 5. They can do too much offensively. There's no holes in their offense. There's no holes in their team offensively. Like their role players can put the ball on the floor and make decisions outside of like Max Strus. Like he's the only one. I don't know how much Sam Merrill's going to play in this series. I think that will be determined after game 1. Like Max Strus is the only one who you don't trust to like put the ball on the floor a whole lot. Like you said, DeAndre Hunter can do it, and Jarrett Allen obviously, and Dean Wade. But like heavy minute guys, like they're really like the main ones. And then Jerome, Mitchell, and Garland can all do like legitimately primary creation duties for you, in depending on the dosage. Like Jerome in much smaller quantities than those guys. Yeah, I just think the Cavs are like a better Pacers. Like that's where I'm at. Like they're the Pacers, but
exciting. That's why it's so exciting. They both have like really good playmaking guards, lead guards. You have 2. I think Andrew Nembhard's to a way lesser degree than Donovan Mitchell, but I think Andrew Nembhard is a athletic, stronger shot creator that can put the ball on the floor and get to wherever he wants within the inside of the arc. And then you have like a stronger 3-point shooting 3 in Hunter and Neesmith. I do think these teams are very similar. I do think the difference is versatility and the defense, to where the Pacers just don't have that edge. And then also another question I wanted to ask you: do you think the Cavs are going to crash the glass more, knowing that the Pacers are the transition threat that they are?
That's the chess match for me. It's because the only team I know in the NBA that can crash the offensive glass and then not give up transition opportunities is the Houston Rockets. Like every other team, it tends to be a trade-off where if you are a heavy crashing team, you aren't the greatest transition defense.
Yeah.
So I think game 1, I would expect the Cavs to crash. And then depending how it works out for them, I think that will determine the rest of the series. If game 1, and I might be way off, they might just not crash in game 1, and then maybe in game 2 they start doing it. But assuming they do crash in game 1 and it works out favorably, I expect them to continue to do it. If they end up getting torched in transition, I expect them to be more conservative in that approach. I also think we're at a possibility where Jarrett Allen's minutes go down and we see a lot more Evan Mobley at the 5. Not because Jarrett Allen isn't good, but because of that extra just versatility. I think Jarrett Allen is the Cavs' worst offensive, like high minute player, because he is pretty much a play finisher, offensive rebounder, screener, and like he can do things, but it's like he's still good. But like that's the point of why they're so great. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a chess match in terms of the crashing. The Pacers are never gonna crash. They just don't do that.
Yeah,
Miles Turner's hovering around the 3-point line. Like they're not crashing. That's not what they do. So I think the Cavs, I expect to win the possession battle just off of that, even if they aren't like heavily crashing. I do think they can still win the possession battle. And then I think if we get to a point where the Cavs are comfortable switching with Haliburton, Garland notwithstanding, is Haliburton a good enough scorer to punish that? Is he a good enough scorer to punish those switches? Because it's obviously this ain't Brook Lopez switches. This ain't Giannis with 5-5.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah,
like, that's where to constantly punish
that. That's where I feel like one of the differences come up, because it's like I'm not necessarily frightened of Jarrett Allen going on to the perimeter against Hallie. Like, it's going to be an advantage, I believe. I just don't think Hallie can attack that to the level of like a Darius Garland would be able to attack Miles Turner, or Donovan Mitchell would be able to attack Miles Turner out on the perimeter. So that's what makes it like we can run a lot of switch everything lineups, but I think there was another question I wanted to ask, but now I'm blanking. No pun intended. But yeah, I think you're convincing me to move to Cavs in 5 though. I think you are
So
convincing
we
me to move
both
to
will have the
Cavs.
same prediction. So if we both wrong, then we suck. So you going to
Yeah,
Cavs in 5?
I'm gonna go to Cavs in 5. I'm gonna get that out the way.
Haliburton shot 27% from 3 in the Bucks series. Law of averages is saying he will shoot better. You get Hopefully with the 3-ball going. Yeah, it's tough because I think the Pacers are the third best team in the East. I don't know if that's a hot take, but I think they're the third best team in the East. It's just I think the top 2 are just way better than the rest of the conference. So I think it's tough. Yeah, I'm going with Cavs in 5. I went with Boston in 5. You went with Boston in 5. And you've also gone with Cavs in 5?
Yeah.
And that's our prediction. That's what we'll put on the screen. That's what we have. We both have the exact same prediction. So if we're both right, nice. If we're both wrong, damn. But that's what we got. We're not changing it. The series does tip off in about an hour. And then we will see how it fares in about a week and a half. We have one final super chat from Akeem Brian Akeem. It's a football super chat, so I will answer it. He asked, do you think Ronaldinho is closer to Cristiano Ronaldo than Cristiano Ronaldo is to Messi? No. No, I do not. Okay. That just about does it. Went for about an hour, which is I think reasonable because we're going to go for about an hour again after the Rockets Warriors game 7. The stream is scheduled right now for I want to say 11 o'clock Eastern, if I did my calculations correct. Assuming the Rockets Warriors game doesn't go to overtime, it should start on time. But if the game takes too long, I will delay the stream. But we will be going live straight after the Rockets Warriors game, or within like 5 minutes. So we will be live right after, talking about that game, talking about the Western Conference playoffs, talking about our round 2 predictions. So Denver versus OKC, and then the Timberwolves versus whoever they end up playing. But as always, John D, where can everyone find you?
You guys can find me over at the Buzzer Sports. College scouting reports are ramping up. The draft is right around the corner. Thinking about doing a stream for the NBA draft lottery that will be coming up in about 8 days. You guys can find my Knicks and Celtics preview video where we dive into some film on that channel as well. Don't necessarily think you're going to get a Cavs Pacers video from me just because the game starts in about an hour and it's not that quick to make videos out here. But you will get a Thunder and Nuggets preview. You will also get a Timberwolves versus Rockets /Warriors video from me as well. You can count on a Dylan Harper scouting report coming this week. A lot of things coming, man. It's the draft season coming up, playoffs. We got a lot to go.
As always, John D's links are in the description. You can find me, Players Choice, Monday through Friday. Find me here. You could follow me on TikTok, but I haven't posted a TikTok in months. Could follow me on Twitter, very active on Twitter. All those links are in the description. And we will see you in about, 6 hours? About 6 hours for stream number 2. Hoop Talk podcast history. So make sure you're here for that. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you when we see you. And goodbye, Dab.